Falco. Crush that Peloton. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Popcast. Whenever you're listening to this, whether it be live or a VOD, Twitch or YouTube, or Spotify, while you are finding a cat suit that you can wear to the Mario movie premiere, creating a Splatoon competitive player deathmatch battle thread, celebrating your team being eliminated from LUTI. Whatever it is that you're doing right now, appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this. Unless I don't. Hey, congratulations to those of you who finished out the season. Sincerely, even if you made the playoffs or not, if you actually played all 5 weeks or you played all the matches where your opponents didn't drop already, kudos to you. Hats off to you. You're on the first step to becoming whatever it is that you become in this scene. You did the right thing. You went all the way through. If you're a team that dropped and you didn't finish out the season, we're just going to move on from that. But whether you finished, made the playoffs or not, you did it. It's the friends you make along the way. Hopefully you made some connections with some cool teams, found some new scrim partners. Maybe you played a team that pissed you off so much that you found new motivation to get better and eventually play them again someday, beat them, and then make a funny video and post it on Twitter about them. I don't know. Whatever it is that you kids do in your competitive Splatoon stuff these days. We don't have time to do a weekly recap in this episode. Usually when I do LUTI stuff, where I just talk about a current LUTI season, the video tends to go on for way too long. So we're just going to cut the fat out right now, and we'll start getting into it, but we'll do a little bit of the usual things. First off, since there is no weekly recap, we're not going to go back and talk about the NFL stuff that happened the past week, which is your guys' favorite segment. Honestly, it's mine. I know. But I will say this. sucks to suck if you are a 49ers fan to have your third string quarterback of the season get injured, taken out of the game, and then your fourth string quarterback, who I'm assuming they just signed a few weeks ago, Josh Johnson, come in and get a concussion, and your fourth string quarterback is gone. You have to put in your broken elbow. It turns out, it looks like they have a torn UCL or something like that, and you put Brock Purdy back in. It's just like, hey, hand the ball off. Like, this is professional football, and we got to throw in broken players in the conference championship games just to get things going. So be it. I'm assuming they just didn't have a third active quarterback that they could run with, and they just had to throw, okay, here, you do that, and maybe Christian McCaffrey, you throw it a few times. I don't know. Who would have been like the third string quarterback? And at that point, when you're on your sixth quarterback of the season, you're pretty much just going to lose. So I understand that. But who else could, like, if Josh Johnson goes down, who's after that? Is like Josh McCown still active? Does anyone know if that player still plays, or if they're like coaching high school or something like that? But congratulations to Kansas City Chiefs fans and Philadelphia Eagle fans. We're going to be battling out in the desert a couple of weeks. We like football around here. News of tournaments that may be of interest to the casual listener of the podcast. SAC is this weekend. But pop good, SAC was last weekend. Yeah, no duh, dummies. They're doing SAC back-to-back because the weekend after this is 20XX, freeing up some time for Dapple Productions to have a weekend so that there's a little bit easier for them to do things. There's some collaborations going on between a bunch of orgs here to make sure everybody gets a fair share of the weekend tournament pie to some extent. But some things going on this weekend other than SAC. LSL is going on Saturday. Minnow Cup is going on Sunday. I thought Minnow Cup was going on last Sunday because I was scheduled to commentate it, and I was just mentally prepared to commentate it. And then I woke up and my wife's like, no, that's next Sunday. It's not this Sunday. And I was like, oh. Well, then I guess I just got to mentally prepare for next Sunday. Minnow Cup Tower Control Edition from MIT. Squid Junction's going on Saturday. And it was just announced that Nintendo's doing another Turf War tournament. And spoiler alert, it is going to be going on during Low Inc. And another spoiler alert, because whether it's my Proving Grounds tournament or my Low Inc. tournament, Nintendo always finds ways to run during all of those things. And to Nintendo, I say, bring it on, suckers. I ain't scared of you guys at all. At all. Nintendo doing a tournament, a Turf War tournament during Low Inc. isn't really going to affect us at all. They're not going to do a stream, so it's not like we're going to lose viewers. The teams that are signing up that are going to win it are all banned from Low Inc. The other teams that are going to sign up to be cannon fodder to the teams that are going to win it don't even know what Low Inc. is, so it doesn't really matter. It's going to be just fine. I'd rather Nintendo try to fight Low Inc. than fight somebody else. We ain't scared of you. Today, we are going to be talking about playoffs. We're going to show all the playoffs brackets are live, and we're going to go through Div X down to Div 11, and I'm going to tell you who's going to win every single div. You don't have to pay attention for the next month of LUTI playoffs. You can just skip it all right now by watching this episode of the Popcast, and you don't have to watch Splatoon tonight, or the Splatoon Tourney channel. I'm going to tell you how these things end. You can spend your Saturdays or Sundays, I don't know, doing homework. People still do homework, right? You're supposed to be doing that. You guys can do that instead of listening to watching that farce of a LUTI broadcast service system thingamabob. All of that. But first, JK, there's not really a but first. I just always say but first for some reason and then take a sip of water. But we're literally just diving into that topic. It's the only thing we're talking about today. So let's get right into it. And we are not going to start off with Div 11. We're not going to bury the lead. We're going to get right into it, starting with Div X. And look at this sad, sorry excuse of a bracket that is Div X. If you remember Div X last season, every team qualified for the playoff, and it was a double elimination bracket for everyone that played the playoffs. This time around, only 4 teams made it in a single limb, and we're going to be done in 2 weeks. Or all in one night, I guess, is what I guess was the theory for going through with this. Yikes. This is why we can't have nice things. If you recall, the Div X playoffs last season was one of the most embarrassing brackets since mankind first created brackets. Whenever the first couple of cavemen got together and were like, "Unga bonga, you best of 5 here and then best of 3 here." Like, this is last season's Div X was the absolute most embarrassing thing mankind has created as far as a bracket could be concerned. So to punish Div X, now you got this sorry ass bracket right here. And to make it even more sorry is the fact that this is one of the most predictable brackets you could come up with in competitive Splatoon. So I'm going to tell you literally how this is going to go. A lot of these other divs I'm going to break down. I'm not crazy confident, but I'm going to give a take on who I think is going to win the div anyways. You should all be predicting the same exact thing right here. First off, Potato is going to beat White Noise, and then Heller is going to beat Enlight. That's straight up just going to happen. Then in the final match, it's very likely Heller is going to beat Potato because Heller has been whooping ass all season long. However, to be fair, I'll say this. If Heller wins, it's going to be a 5-0, 5-1 kind of result. If Potato wins, it's going to be a 5-3, 5-4 kind of result. So if it's close, I'll give the edge to Potato, but I don't think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be more of that 5-0, 5-1, 5-2 kind of category you're going with right there. And take that to the bank. Now, before we get into this, we're not going to do this with every single group, but since there's only 10 teams, I do want to point out how competitive Div X was to some extent. Like the EU bracket over here, or EU plus Ascension, seemed to go like a traditional one goes. Rock beats paper, beats scissors, and everybody just kind of falls out in line here. But this one down here, minus Rogue Wave, or Rising Wave, I guess you say, who dropped, looked really, really competitive. 2 teams going 3-2, the other 2 going 2-3. This group was right. This group looks really good and is really right. So I just wanted to point out that it was fun. It was a fun season going all the way around. But Heller, my goodness, 5-2 Tempest, 5-0 White Noise, 5-2 DNA without using a single crab in that one, and then 5-0 Seafoam. Yeesh, give Seafoam a little bit of mercy there. They've been improving a lot recently. So, yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb and pick Heller. And that's not to say Potato hasn't been dominant in their own right. I think the closest anyone came to them was Throne in a 5-3 matchup, Throne being the team that finished in 3rd place in this group here. But Heller just seems like a completely different animal, so I got to give it to them. Now, I'm not saying like if Last Chance was in here, if Crushed Soda was in here, if Sayonara, if Starburst, that'd be a completely different div. I don't know where Heller stacks up with those other teams. Heller was originally going to play. No, Heller did sign up to play in the Nintendo tournament, but because of jank Turf War speed ladder tiebreaker rules, they didn't make top 16, but a team that failed to make playoffs in like Div 10 did. So you would have liked to see Heller play some of these other monsters in that kind of setting, but the right situation hasn't really arisen to that yet. But still, they can find a way to win Div X here. Div 1. There it goes. You know what sucks about Div 1? Is the fact that Slow Start is here. Now, Slow Start, originally we put in Div 2 because we only recognize half their players, and we're like, well, the 2 players we recognize are really good. Who are these other guys who don't know? Let's put them in Div 2. And then they complained afterwards because apparently everybody knows that Ant is actually Soft Socks now. And then when a spot in Div 1 opened up, they got bumped up to Div 1. When they were playing in Div 1, they were fine. They were Nightmare took them to a game 9, I should say. Mercy somehow beat them 5-3 here in week 4. Everybody else was able to take several games off of them. But I was watching them play Smoothie last night, and the player that is now playing on slow start is Bran from Starburst. And at that point, what's the point of this? Is this a Div 1, in theory, a skill cap tournament, or are we just letting Starburst, who would be too good for Div X, have players playing in Div 1? I don't get what the point of that is for anybody involved, but I don't know if that was just like a one-time thing where Brand's playing or Brand's like sticking out all the way through here. If that is the case, if Brand stays with slow start for the rest of these 3 matches, don't even bother watching this. Slow start's going to win this. Nobody's going to beat them. It's not going to happen. Hex has been playing really great as of late, able to sneak into the playoffs here. Micklin Heroes has played 4 matches because one of them was a drop, and all 4 of their matches went to a game 9. They played the most stressful possible LUTI season that you can have and found a way to sneak into the playoffs here by winning their group with only 1 loss. Very impressive here. Nightmare took slow start to a game 5. A game 9 initially. I'm going to keep saying a game 5. A game 9 initially. And I was going to say Spark's gotten a lot better. Unhinged Unity, they only really got challenged by Booyah Gang, but they really took care of business against everybody else that they played. Nemesis, if slow start didn't have Brand in the roster, I think Nemesis might be the favorite to go on and win this entire group. But because they're on this side of the bracket, Nemesis is probably going to finish 3rd. I like Nightmare to make it all the way to this championship game. I just feel like they're a little bit step above what you typically see out of the rest of the Div 1 teams. It's just slow start. Their start was slow, but they're going to finish really strong. They're going to win this one. And it might not be pretty. Div number 2. Now, why is my internet being slow and it takes a while for this to load? There it goes. One thing I want to point out with Div 2, and you can say this about every single Div, and I didn't go through and look at every single Div and like figure out how many teams dropped out of each one because I don't really care, but I'll at least say it now so that we can get it out of the way. Yes, there are a lot of groups where things get weird because of drops. There are some teams that have made playoffs in other divs that only won 1 singular match. They got their other wins because half of their group dropped, and then they just beat the one team that was the other of the 3 remaining, so they got playoffs off of that. I don't think that's the case here in anything in Div 2, but I do just want to point out this is where the jank starts to happen. You got 2 teams dropping out of this group, 2 teams dropping out of this one, and this team is just called dropped team. They dropped as well. I don't even remember who this was supposed to be at this point. As far as the playoffs is concerned, though, this one's going to be a little bit more competitive than Div 1 should be in theory. Synergy is, I believe they are the number 1 team in SAC right now. They should be. I believe they got the most points. They won the first qualifier. I know they didn't win the second one. They got beat by whatever team. I forget the name, Squeezer or whatever. Squeak, whatever team Squeak did a pickup of that week was. But I feel like Synergy in a best of 9 scenario is really hard to beat when skill level is the same across the board, which in theory, this is the situation right here. So I like Synergy to get past Vivid. Sorry, into Phase 2, I feel like is going to be a lot of people's pick, but I still feel like Synergy over the course of 9 games is going to find a way to get it done. But if I'm looking at a team that's going to win this entire thing, I don't know. The thing with Moe Fan Club is I feel like they haven't really been challenged yet. 5-1 Shard. They beat the dropped team who Epic Pikachu. Yes, I think you're right. Slow Start was supposed to be in here, but then when they got bumped up, nobody came in and filled their spot. So that makes sense. But 5-1 Defrost, 5-2 Trilite Cruzada, and then Honeycomb get out of here 5-0. So I feel like Moe hasn't really been challenged yet, and I don't know. They might get challenged in this week 2 matchup, possibly against Bad, maybe Bazooka Squad, but I feel like I would say Synergy is going to win this one just because I know Synergy a little bit better. But the fact that nobody has been able to challenge or even threaten Moe Fan Club just yet makes me think they might actually be the favorite. So I'm going to go against my own gut here, and I'm going to pick Moe to win it. Synergy takes second. Let's give Sori into phase number 2 third in this division. Oh, that was a lot faster. There we go. Division 3. Triggerfish Zone Supremacy. All right, fine. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry I didn't pick you guys to make it out of your playoff group. In this group, I think I originally said Eventides, who dipped out of this one, and Night Fairs were going to win it. To be fair, Night Fairs did beat Triggerfish Zone Supremacy, where Kraken did tell me, well, it's because we didn't have a roster situation or something like that. Your best ability is availability. So don't play that card with me. You get to decide the schedule for the LUTI match. If your player that you want isn't available on the day you picked, that's on you. Or if you had an internet issue, I guess that's out of your control as well. But that's not Night Fair's problem. Regardless, it doesn't matter. Triggerfish Zone Supremacy won this whole group. Makashera, who I probably wasn't expecting to get out of this group as well, made it on top of that. I'll go as far as to say this, because a lot of people are going to be on the Wipeout Punks bandwagon, and rightfully so. We all saw what they did to Narwhal Gaming in Proving Grounds, beating them 2-0 in Top Cut, and taking a game off of Flippy Floppas, the CS team that had a pickup, I guess technically. It was Keo, Goss, Thunder, and Biscuit. Yeah, Wipeout Punks took a game off them and beat Narwhal Gaming along the way. So a lot of people are going to look at this and say, Wipeout Punks is going to not just beat Triggerfish, but move on. Yes, Wipeout Punks is playing really good right now. I would argue that Triggerfish Zone Supremacy has been playing really good for a longer period of time, and I'm going to pick Triggerfish possibly to make it all the way here to finals. No disrespect to L Arctic, who had to survive a game 9 last week against Anxiety Sirens to move on there. I feel like Triggerfish Zones, over the course of the experience that they've been playing, and this isn't me trying to overcorrect, not saying they wouldn't play in playoffs, just look at them a little bit deeper and seeing what they did on their stream, even though they lost to the whoever they played in the Nintendo tournament. They looked really good. I'll pencil them in for finals. However, the real championship match in this group is going to be right here in this semifinal matchup, which should be Downey versus the Hood. And I think Downey's going to win that one, and I think Downey's going to go on to win this entire div. The Hood going to take in third place. The Triggerfish Zones by default going to take second place here. Downey's just been looking really strong this entire group here. 5-0'd the group that included Wipeout Punks. They 5-0'd the Wipeout Punks. And then everybody else was too scared to play them, so they dropped. Espresso took them to a game 5, and then I don't even know who Atroxidia is anymore, but they 5-0'd them. Downey looks really good. I'm going to roll with them all the way through. I'm going to say they're going to win this div. Yeah. I was looking at this originally, and I was saying, man, I just knocked out Div X through Div 3 like that. 20 minutes. I'm going to have to come up with another segment to fill the hour-long block that I want to have for this episode. This is going to be easy. And then I remembered, all right, Div 4 on down is just the giant. It's giant. 4 rounds of this nonsense. 16 teams making the top cut bracket. Now, last time we had 48 team groups. They were divided up into like the world and the Americas. And I don't think the champion of the world and the Americas played against each other, but it was essentially just two separate 8-team brackets, and you just won like part of the div. Now it's just everything all together, and I'm really scared about how this is going to work in some of these divs. Yes, the lower div teams seem to do a better job of coordinating with each other and getting their matches in on time. But this is playoffs, and there's not really a makeup week. And if one team is only available on the 20 on like the 30th day of February, which doesn't even exist, and that's the only time they can play, then this entire bracket comes to a grinding halt. And you might have like teams that are here in semifinals, and there's other teams that are like 2 weeks behind. You got to wait for everybody to catch up. I'm really fearful that's going to happen in some of these divs. I saw how Div X go. I saw how Div X went. But in theory, this is going to be done by February. And all these divs on down look like this, except for Div 11. But we'll see how things go here. As far as Div 4 goes, INKD Inked really surprised me this season. I was keeping an eye on them. They looked like they were limping into LUTI. They were, ever since they won Low Ink when they did the fusion dance with the Squid Killers and they became the Inked Killers, when the fusion dance wore off after 30 minutes and they just became back to Inked, they did not look good at all. They did not look like a Low Ink champion. I'll be straight up honest. However, in Div 4, of all the teams that came into Div 4 that were recent Low Ink champions, they did the best. They 5-0'd their groups, and they looked really strong. So they were able to right the ship with whatever happened at the end of that Low Ink, and they got back to being the monster we expected them to be up to this point. In fact, I feel like this matchup against Silly Kitties might be the most interesting one in this round one block that you got here. Tempo... this is a team that they're the number 3 seed here, and you can't just trust seeds because they're based off of what group you were originally in and where you ended up in that group. So don't trust exact seeding. They're slightly right because the initial seeding was built into the groups of where like things were slightly, like it's slightly correct, but it's not at the same time. Yes and no. Did you think about that? But Tempo, the thing about these guys, they only played 2 matches, right? Did everybody just completely drop in Tempo's group? So they went 5-0 in their group, but 3 of their matches dropped. All-Star Squad, Clean Laundry, and Squids of the Filth said, yeah, I'm just going to take that 4, put it in my bio, and I'm good. That's all I wanted out of this. So I believe they just beat GG Wasn't It, which is a good win, and Cold Coral. These are 2 good wins, but that's the only teams that Tempo beat. And to their credit, they beat them slightly soundly. Cold Coral gave them a run for their money, taking it to a game 8. But Tempo's the most unproven of the group champions right now, and that's not their fault. It's just nobody could really play for them. It's just their opponents didn't really show up to go up against them, so I don't really know what to think of them. Ocean 7 and Pico, this could be a good matchup. However, if Ocean 7 has proved anything, they are going to drop from this. They're going to set up the match, they're going to play the match, and then they're going to drop after the first game because that is what they always do for whatever reason. Ocean 7, why do you guys keep signing up for tournaments if all you do is drop from them? You know how to you know more about dropping protocols in tournaments than any team in the history of competitive Splatoon. However, I will say this, if Ocean 7 actually does play, they've been playing pretty good in the few tournaments they actually play through. So I do expect them to get up past here, past Pecco. However, here are the teams that I got that are going to be in my Final 4 here. I think Sassy Spikers gets past all these guys and make it to semifinals. I think Frostbite, even though I just praised Inked, I think Frostbite's a little bit better right now with the results that they got. So they'll move on to semifinals. In the bottom 2 teams here in this bracket, give me the Cherry Dolphins because they, like Inked, have been, after they won Low Ink, backed it up by getting really strong results. I think Cherry Dolphins moves on to semifinals. 3/4 Cats, the team that's down here that didn't win their group, finished in 2nd place. Still a really strong roster right there. In fact, who was the team that beat 3/4 Cats? It was Frostbite. Oh, wait, no, they had that awkward thing. 3/4 Cat. Yeah, they lost to Frostbite 5-3. Well, who did Frostbite lose to? They lost to Ink Sync in the beginning of the season, so they fumbled away. By the way, Ink Sync was the most bizarre team in this all of LUTI. They beat Frostbite. They took Ink Pressure to a game 9. They took they beat the team that won the div, and the team that finished second place took to a game 9. It took somebody else, and then the Grillers just curb stomped them. So like Ink Sync, it was just the most bizarre team of them all to come out of here. However, with that being said, my top 3, as far as my notes are concerned, I'll pick the Cherry Dolphins to get into finals, and I'll pick them to beat the Sassy Spikers. And we'll give third place to 3/4 Cats over Frostbite. How's that so? If your teammates wake up, we won't drop. What planet are your teammates sleeping on? I swear, there was Destiny troops. I would call our teammates the sleeping beauties. Sometimes, like, the only way to wake them up, you had to get that polka flute and then have them be kissed by some sort of handsome prince at the right time of day. That's the only way they'll wake up in time. I understand that frustration. Div 5. All right. Div 5. So this is cool. This is going to be interesting. Some of these sets are going to be really interesting. Aquatic Vanguard has been a different kind of animal in LUTI. Of course, they're finicky in every other tournament they do, but whatever it is with LUTI, they took care of business. And move on here. Again, now they got a tough draw against Crescent Knight, a team that has won low ink. Do we have any other current low ink champions right now? No. My Obsidious got banned. Sanguine Seas should have won that last low ink, but they didn't. Crimson Wave's been banned. I can't remember if Second Naga's been banned or not, but we haven't seen them in low ink in a while, and Opium's been banned. So this is kind of that awkward mix of teams that are knocking on the door of winning low ink and teams that we've already kicked out the door of winning low ink. And some of these teams are going to get curb stomped. I'm not going to point out which curb stomps here, but some of these round 1 matches are not going to be competitive whatsoever. But I feel like Aquatic Vanguard and Crescent Knight is the match you'll want to keep an eye on here for the first round of this div. The Imbeciles are the total wild card here. These guys could totally bomb, get 5-0'd by Neon Palm Tree, or they could go all the way to finish in the third place. It just matters of who they bring. They could come in with a mash unit of 7 players that are on a completely different team, or they could come in with their actual roster. And when they play with their actual roster, they're really, really good. It's just the flip of the coin, finicky kind of things going on there. So they're the complete wild card when it comes to this. They could finish anywhere in this group because they're capable. I hesitate to say that they're capable of beating everybody here, but they're capable of beating most teams here. So we'll give them that. My final 4 with this one is going to be... Well, let's just get this out of the way. Who's going to be the team that wins this one? Let's all say it together. Opium. Opium's going to win this div. I would be shocked beyond belief if anybody but Opium is the team that's standing at the end of this championship match here. They're just going to beat this. A Crescent Knight might give them a run for their money. Crescent might be the best team to try to stop Opium. But after that, if Opium just does what Opium does, they just win this div. I'm not sitting here. Now, there's some other divs down the line where it's kind of obvious who's going to win. But ever since Opium just got this Div 5, they've just been a different animal. But the other teams are going to finish up top here. Give me the Imbeciles taking third place in a toss-up between either Snowball and Sanguine Seas, who's going to be moving on to that second place match. Crimson Waves, I expect Crimson Wave to be the team that gets up here to semifinals. I think Red Pacific is more than capable of doing it, but I just think pound for pound is of where they stand right now. Crimson Wave is probably better, just at least on paper. So I'm going to pencil in Crimson Waves to finish up top here. Sanguine Sea is probably the team that gets past Snowball and moves on to finals, but it's Opium, and we'll give Splat-A-Lot Imbeciles the third place spot here, just because I feel like you control more variables with LUTI. You can try to make it work out a little bit better with getting the roster that you want to show up on game day. Div 6. Na 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 na. Hey June. All right, let's move on to Div 7. Nah, JK. Let's go through this, because it's not just June that's going to dominate here. There's some other strong teams worth noting. First off, I love me some college teams. Night Sharks up top here, winning their group. They got a tough draw against Squid Emoji, a team that didn't win their group because the team that beat them and win their entire group beat them 5-4. So it was a close loss between Squid Emoji finishing here and not getting seeded somewhere else. So this is a tough draw for the Night Sharks. We'll see how that goes. I like Adentes, the number 16 seed here, to beat the I Hoarded the Happy Meal, but I'm still sad, WTF. Just because. Other things I want to point out here, Orca Balestra. These guys they made top 32 in the most recent low ink. They made beta brackets. I think they got a couple of wins in SAC, which is, here or there. It at least proves that they're going out and playing other tournaments and getting results right there. And hats off to Inkvaders. I don't know if I said they were going to win their group or not. Well, they didn't win their group. I believe Hydra ended up winning their group out of what was the tiebreaker here? They're tied, head to head. That would make sense. It's like they're completely tied every other way. But hats off to Inkvaders and Hydra. I might have said some of these other teams would win out of here, but especially Hydra. I was not expecting Hydra to be the team that finished number one out of this group, but congratulations to them. But still, I expect maybe Squid Emoji to get out of here into semifinals. On the lower side of the bracket, this is just where everything kind of gets. There are a lot of monsters down here. First off, Epsilon. They're a team that I had in my top 10. They kind of obliterated, I believe, a Delta bracket, one of the first Delta brackets we did, and then they made top 32 the next time they played in Lowing. We haven't seen them in a while. I don't think they played in December, and I don't think they played in January. It might have been November that they won and played in December, where they got top 32. But Epsilon was really good in Low Ink when they played all the way through it. Iruka is a team that made top 8 in the most recent Low Ink as well. So that would say maybe June and Iruka. So June would have to, if they beat Beautiful Blossoms, which I would expect them to do, they have to play Iruka, then they would have to play Epsilon, and then they would have to play one of the best teams come out here, which I might just be Squid Emoji. So June would be challenged. This isn't a cakewalk for them to make it all the way to finals, but still, I don't see anybody beating them again over the course of 9 games. This is June's bracket to win, and I could see them winning this entire div. I think I said that as soon as I saw what they did to beta bracket a couple of months ago. Yeesh. Div 7. In Tropical is the team I want to point out here. In Tropical and TR Esports are the two teams that we want to mention here. And I think this one's kind of got to go the way it's seeded. TR Esports, Pond Duck Crew this is a pretty strong team. I believe one of the players on Pond Duck Crew was on Crescent Night when they won Low Ink. That might be like the same player that's on their LUTI roster right now. So that pays dividends. But TR Esports, 5-0, 5-0, 5-0 to Pond Duck Crew. Did anybody beat TRE Sports? One team took a game off of them. This team, Cosperspelling, that's not an actual word. So TRE Sports didn't really get challenged in their group at all. In Tropical, I believe the same thing. 5-0, 5-0, 5-0, 5-2, Scarlet Inc. kind of threatened them a little bit, and then 5-0 GL. Scarlet Inc., the team that finished in third place. So in Tropical wasn't really challenged in their group either. So I feel like those two teams as the 1 and 2 seed, again, the seeds don't really matter, but things kind of work out a little bit. Work their way down through here, and I feel like those are the two teams that are going to finish in this final. Fallen Squids is the team that interests me the most. Because I know they've been getting some decent results in the tournaments that we've been seeing them play in outside of things. What did they do in this tournament? Did they win their group? Man, there's so many groups here. Yeah, they win their group, but again, you look at the teams that are signed up here. These are all strong, notable. This is like one of the oldest team groups ever. Like Summersite, Infinity, Team Irida, that's how that's pronounced. And Oofish have been around since the dawn of time, but Falling Squids, I believe, took care of all of them. Irida took them to a game 9 in week 1, and then they just kind of took over business from there. Just had a little bit of the scare in week 1. I think they only lost like 1 game since then. So they look really strong in their own right. But just all these other teams, I don't think. Oh, this group right here, Group C. This was an absolute bloodbath. Yeah, 2 teams go 4-1. 2 other teams go 3-2. There's Day Old Sushi. Probably getting a little bit surprised by how strong some of these teams were. Project Zeta and Splatolite Gambit. Was that a 5-4? Yes, that was a 5-4 matchup between those two teams. So they seem right with each other. This kind of trading wins across the board there. So there's a lot of good action to come from this. I like Project Zeta to move on to face probably in Tropical right here. And I like TR Esports to go on to face, it's hard to say because King Gambit, I believe, or Galliant also had kind of a tough group themselves. Cephala Squad and King Galliant. I believe, there was a week 1 matchup that was 5-4 that went into their favor as well. And ever since then, they both just took turns beating up on everyone, except for Black Squid, Inkburger was able to kind of threaten things down there. So, okay, this entire group, like all 3 of these teams seem really close. And IRS, didn't they make Gamma Bracket? Or no, they made top 32 because the team dropped. They made top 32 and they made Beta Bracket in most recent loic. So this is a tough div that only 4 of the 6 teams actually played. So it's hard to tell. As you get down into these lower divs, you start to understand some of these teams. It's hard to gauge how good they were in their group because you don't know how good this one group was compared to the next one. They could have been like completely separate. Like the worst team in one group could have completely curb stomped the team that won the other one. You just don't know because you're not going to figure out how they match up against each other until just this week 1 matchup that we're going to see right here. So some of these teams we don't see traditionally playing a lot of things outside of LUTI or maybe a couple of low inks and they're not on stream. It's hard to tell. I'll go with TR Esports though, just because they have been a thing for a lot longer. They got a lot more LUTI experience. Didn't they win their LUTI div? I want to say they did win a LUTI div, like one of the lower LUTI divs a couple of seasons ago, if not last season. And that's going to bother me, so I might just look that up later, not right now. But that experience does pay off into these bracket things that you're going in through here, where you got to go each week and find your new opponent and learn information about them and single limb and all that nonsense. So I'll go with TR Esports to win this one. Highlighted message in chat. Thoughts on Illusions Div 6. I can't really, if I take like those kind of requests of what I think about every single team, A, this is going to drag on a bit, and B, I don't always have information about every single team. I do have information about every single team, but I don't have something unique to say about every single team. I would say if I didn't say anything about your team, pop off, win your div, or get some really notable results. And when we go back and re-look over this a couple of weeks from now, well, who we kidding? This is going to take 3 months for you guys to get through all this stuff. Then I'll go back and mention you. So that's my thoughts on Illusion for now. What are we at here? This is Div 8. Am I flipping my page? I am. All right. So if you were paying attention to the Splatoon tourney, which is, my goodness, that thing has been crazy successful. And I hope it blossoms into something else down the line. We need some sort of like media, some sort of like Sports Center ESPN version for competitive Splatoon. And maybe Ink TV in theory was going to be that. But Splatoon tourney, this could be the beginning of it blossoming into something special down the road. And I just tuned in last night. I know of the Whip Rays because I know who Sofa King is. Met them in person. They're going to be at LUTI City. I didn't. Who's the team? Tacta Rulers. I always get Tacta Rulers confused with Tacta Coolers, confused with Tacta Fuelers, confused with Tacta Ferris Bueller. Those teams just really suck with their branding because they all sound the same, and it's hard to get them all kind of lined up with each other. Same thing with the Elementor Aero teams. The teams, they all got the spark in them. Splat-a-lot teams are a little bit better now that they're not just letters, and they got like these drippy droppers or whatever. But these Tacta Ruler teams, man, it's hard to recognize them all. I'm never going to forget Tacta Rulers, though, because we saw them play the Rip Rays in basically a championship match, and they 5-0 reverse sweeped the Whip Rays in front of everybody's face to win the result 5-4. Legendary, epic. The Whip Rays, though, still a really strong team in their own right. They bounced back from that. On the very same night, played a makeup match, the second makeup match of the map, and then 5-0 their opponent that they were playing. So they bounced back pretty well. It wasn't an easy 5-0 either. The other team gave them all kinds of hell. Whip Rays was able to bounce back from that, though. Just wanted to point that out. I know the Whip Rays want a second shot at the Tacta Rulers. It's not going to happen in this LUTI bracket. These two teams are not going to play each other again. Instead, there's a couple of monsters that are lurking around here. Before we get to that, I talked about in the past, I want to know who the best Elemental Aero team is. I thought it might be Arrowhead, but for now, it is going to Arrows of Fire. Turns out fire beats ice and lightning. And isn't there like there's got to be like an arrow of water at some point. If there is an arrow water team, they got to be better at Arrows of Fire just by default. But for right now, fire seems to be the best arrow elemental team. And they really kind of proved themselves in this LUTI season here. They went 4-1 in a group that was just absolutely brutal that they went through. Who's the one team that beat Arrows of Fire? Looks like it was Stars Align, that team that finished in first place, but they were able to beat whoever beat Stars Align. So Arrows of Fire, nicely done there, coming out of that group. Crystal Coral, they went 3-0 in their group. I think they had a lot of drops there, but again, you can only play the teams in front of you. That's why they got this number 1 seed here. I'll roll the dice and say Arrows of Fire moves on to this round 2 matchup here. The problem with this whole group, and why I say what I saw of Tacta Rulers and Whip Rays, it doesn't matter at all. The problem is the team that's number 7 slot and the team that's at the number 1 slot in this group are both monsters. This will be your finals. This Bamboosletong. Let's call these guys the Bambooslers. They finished in they made Alpha Bracket in Low Ink last month. Play like that again, you're going to go to finals. Same thing with the Final Reckoning. They made Alpha Bracket of Low Ink last month. Move them past all these other teams and put them in grand finals. It's going to be those two teams facing off in here in Div 8 finals, 2 Alpha Bracket teams. You know, when people come to me and they say, shouldn't you consider lowering the skill cap of Low Ink? What do you want me to lower it to? We got freaking Div 8 teams making Alpha Bracket. Do we just ban everybody and just go all the way down to Div 11? Who are you guys? You come in. Like, none of these divs make any sense when it comes to who plays and what tournament kind of skill cap. You got to think a little bit deeper than that. The teams I've been pointing out the Div 6, the Div 7, now the Div 8 team's still making Alpha Bracket. These things don't really matter anymore. Final reckoning, I'm going to give the nod not to win this tournament. I'm going to give them second place. Bamboozling is going to win this one. If there's a team that finishes in third, who would avoid all of them in a right path to where they get to a semifinal safely? We'll give it to Tacta Rulers. 6-star wanted level, this isn't going to be easy match for them to get past. We'll give it to Tacta Rulers, though, just by default. Prisoner of the moment, what they did on stream yesterday. Div 9. First off, I didn't go back and listen to the preview episode that I did or look over my preview notes of the things that I screwed up, because there was probably a lot of teams that I said were going to make playoffs and absolutely bombed and did horrible. Case in point, what I said with Div 3. But I was a little confused about some things here in Div 9, because a lot of this stuff in Div 9, the teams that made it here, I had to do a lot more research on to come up with the answer that I want to come to. And I do have the teams that are going to win this one, so you still don't have to pay attention to Div 9. However, I did say the Night Logic was, very quickly, I speed read Div 9 when I did the preview. I did say the Night Logic was going to win their group, and good golly, Miss Molly, did they ever win their group. This was, they went 5-0 here. Did anybody take a game off of them? No. Now, they had a couple of drops in there, but the 3 times they played, they 5-0'd their opponent. So nicely done, Night Logic. I see you. Lepeta. Can you put an L before a P? Is that, I don't think that that works. I think that's illegal. Lepeta is another team I wanted to point out here. They did play in the most recent Willow Inc. They went 3-3, didn't qualify for Sunday. But I remember seeing this name initially in Low Inc. and now I was like, oh, okay, cool. So there's some transition going on here. Teams paying attention to tournaments outside of LUTI and these lower divs and going through it. And here's another one of those Tacta teams. Tacta Fueler. What the heck does that even mean? Is that supposed to be like the Tentafueler or the soda thing or whatever? God, I hate that name in general. Just the Tacta team names in general. Back on track. Now, of the teams that I did research on, other than Splat-A-Lot-E, yes, I see all the Splat-A-Lot-E teams. I know you guys love me. I love you too, unless I don't. This div is going to be dominated not by Night Logic, who I predict will make the third place match here. I mean, they will get out of round 2, and semifinals means they will at least play in the finals here. I predict the Night Logic to make the third place match, but this is going to be all Orca, all Killer Whale, Free Willy, baby, because we got Team Orca and Orca Fist that are going to dominate this bracket all month long. Team, let's go with Orca Fist first. Orca Fist made Delta bracket in Low Inc. last month, finishing 4th place in that Delta bracket. And one of the more notable teams they beat was Black Komodo. They beat Black Komodo in a losers bracket best of 3, and that was Orca Fist. So they did really well in that Low Inc., and I don't think any of these other teams can kind of stand up to them. Somebody in chat's a big fan of Octo Onigiris. There's something I might have missed with them. They did go 5-0 in their group. I think the real concern I had was just they didn't quite blow everybody else in their group out. Minx took them to a game 9. Yeah, okay, so that's why I didn't really think too much of them, just because they didn't blow everybody else out of their group. Now, they did really well. I expect them to get past Tacta Fuelers. The other problem is the other Orca team, Team Orca, did play in this group and blew everybody else out that they were going up against here. All of these teams, not a single one of them could take a single game off of Team Orca. 25-0. Yikes. So yeah, I don't know much of Team Orca outside of LUTI, but from what they did in this one individual tournament, they seem like a team that might be a little bit underseeded, and they'll prove it with how they do here. So I expect Team Orca to go all the way here. Orca Fist to be the team that plays against them. Night Logic finishing in third. And we'll give Orca Fist the benefit of the doubt in the championship match just because they have notable outside LUTI tournament experience. And unless there's something I'm completely missing with Team Orca, I'm going to say they're going to finish in second place. Two more divs left to go, then I get pizza. Div 10. Non-binary fuzz. I always talk about these guys when I get a chance to. I don't have anything to say about them, but here they are. Non-binary fuzz. And I talk about them because they play in a lot of tournaments. I play a lot of little squid leagues, play a lot of low inks. They seem to be playing as many tournaments as they can that that are around what their skill level is. And that's probably going to pay dividends for them as well. I remember seeing RGB Rebels in Little Squid League as well. In fact, these two teams might have played each other at some point in Little Squid League. This might be a bit of a rematch. The Ink Vaders, not to be confused with Ink Vaders without the in it. The Ink Vaders was able to take care of business. They did really well in their group, actually. I don't think they blew everybody else out. 5-3, 5-1, 5-0. Drop. They scared off these last two teams. Midnight Angels. What the heck is that? So I just wanted to point that out just because they got the same name as Ink Vaders, but the Ink Vaders actually backed up. They lived up to the hype of having the name Ink Vader in your name, and they took control of their group. There are some other monsters that's kind of lurking out here, though. Ink Strikers, this number one team, and Paw Patrol, or KO Patrol. They didn't lose a single game. they didn't just 5-0 their group. They didn't lose a single game all season long. And again, this is where we find, like, they could get completely crushed by the Feral Savages here. You just don't really know. You just don't really know until you see them play against other teams outside of their own group. But for at least the teams that they played in their group, they couldn't hold a candle to them. So you could see Ink Strikers versus KO Patrol here in the semifinal matchup. However, I think the team I feel the most comfortable about is this other team that's at the top here, Rizco. Just because, as I was looking at the group here, I recognize more of these team names. There's Alliance Moon in there, everybody's favorite team showing up. Rizco beat them 5-1. Squidfany 5-0, Solaris 5-0, and RGB Rebels, who's also made top cut in this bracket. They 5-0'd them as well. So I think Rizco might have the at least more notable results on their roster. So maybe they're the team that get past all of these. But this seems like a top-heavy. Whichever team makes it out of the top half of this bracket is probably the team that's going to win it. The team's going to finish in second place here. I'm going to say Non-Binary Fuzz makes it to the bronze medal match, and they're not going to win it. It's going to be the loser of whatever this one is. The team that goes on and finishes second place, though, do I give it to the Tentacult, another one of those Tenta teams? Do I give it to the Royal Succulents? Because they're another good pick there because they had a scrappy run. They didn't like blow everybody out of their group, but they were very scrappy with how they were able to find ways to get wins. I believe they got a couple of Game 9 wins. We'll take a look at Royal Succulents. Lethal Vengeance. That is an aggressive name. Yeah, 5-4 Royal Succulents win. 5-3 against Clown House. They win. 5-0, another 5-4 win, and then their last opponent dropped. So yeah, Royal Succulents is probably the most battle-tested team out of this. I'll still give it to Tentacult. I feel like they're not the second best team in this group. I feel like this is very top-heavy, but I feel like they're going to slip their way all the way through to get grand finals in second place here, technically. Oh, really? Lethal Vengeance plays competitive Mario Kart? Do we have other competitive Mario Kart teams here? I know like there's a couple of Paladin teams. Obviously a lot of Valorant players. I forget what team we had. We had a Pokemon Unite team playing a low ink once and did really well. Um, I don't know how competitive Mario Kart skills transfer over. I guess not good if you can't get playoffs in Div 10. Div 11. I don't know what to say about this. It's the good old Div 11. I will say this, though. This is, by design, the most unfun group ever. Unfun div ever. But only 5 teams dropped out of this. Nobody dropped in B or C. And then a handful dropped across the board. So only 5 teams dropped out of A, B, C, D, E, F, 6 groups. So that says something. But because there's less groups here, there's more than in the top groups, but there's not the 48 teams. That's why you got this kind of jank bye system bracket that you got going on here. I don't know what to say about this div. I didn't have anything to say about it other than the names of the teams. Do any of these team names resonate with anybody? Except for Octos and Squid United. I know who these guys are. The Ohio State, the team that cannot beat Michigan ever again in football, found a way to go 4-1 in this group. This is one of those examples of we need to bring in somebody who understands these college teams a little bit better to the LUTI Seating Council, because these guys might have been initially maybe too good for... They at least had results that we could have looked at, and we just didn't see it. But it seems like they still had a fun LUTI season nonetheless. 5-2, 5-0, a 5-4 win, and then a 5-3 loss. So it looks like they had a tight competitive group, but that's just by random crap luck. That's just what Div 11 is. So if there's a team I had to make a pick here based off the looking all this information, how can you not go with Splabooey? Are you kidding me? Is that one of the best team names of all time? It might just be that. We got all these stupid team names across the board, and they're only going to get more stupid and dumb as we go forward. Guys, you can only use the word moon in ink so many times before it becomes redundant. But not anybody has called themselves Splabooey. And what has Splabooey done other than just get the #1 overall seed somehow? They went 5-0 in their group. And the most games anybody took off of them was just this first matchup where the Anemones took 2 games off of them. So there you go. Give me Splabooey to become the first team since the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to win the bottom group of the LUTI Div. Well, that's some great company you're joining right there. Splabooey and the frickin' Ninja Turtles. So there you go. There's my predictions for every single LUTI Div. All of them are going to be correct. Don't pay attention to the actual results. And if I'm wrong, don't at me. I already forgot about everything I said in this video by the time you've listened to this. I promise you. Now, if I didn't mention you in any way, because I believe it or not, even though I was one of the people in the seating council, I don't actually know all 462 teams, and all the information I crammed into my head during that week we spent ranking all of you guys, it all already left out the door because I'm watching a new anime and I'm trying to save room in my head so that I can enjoy that anime. So don't expect me to say something nice about everybody because I just don't have something to say about everybody. However, I will say this. I will come up with some way to wrap up this LUTI season, and if you pop off during the playoffs, well, let's say if I didn't mention during regular season and you popped off, and I still haven't mentioned you in the playoffs and you pop off again, I'll have no choice but to say something nice about you when you're the last team standing, right? So we'll be keeping an eye on this, and make sure, and this isn't like a sponsored plug or anything, but make sure you get your match streamed. You need to go to the Splatoon tourney at Falco and get your match on that channel this weekend. You need to do that. There needs to be people competing to get their matches on that channel. You're going to have 150 people watching you. You're going to get your name out there. The only reason I know who Tactifuelers are is because they played in a match on that Splatoon tourney channel. Make a name for yourself. Reach out to Falco and get your damn match put on a place where all eyeballs can be on it. It's the best thing you can do for your brand, even if you lose, I promise you. Make sure you do that. And we'll see you guys next week. If you'd like to be a part of the podcast in any way, feel free to reach out. My socials below: Twitter, Mr_Popgun, Discord, Popgun, hashtag 5882, YouTube at 25 Popgun, Twitch at Popgun25, Anchor.fm/Popgun. If you missed the div that you want me to talk about, rewind the VOD back, or you can go and check out the entire VOD on YouTube. It'll be up in about an hour or so. Let's go raid the berry. Make sure you guys go to Low Tide City. You don't have an excuse not to. Yes, it costs money. Make sure you go and start your bake sale now so that you can raise up enough money that you can go and to Low Tide City. Get vaccinated. Wear a mask. Stay safe. Don't kill anybody. That's against the law. Try not to do that.